Second hour. Good morning, everyone. Saturday, November 15th, 2025. Good old 710 KNUS. The weather, 72 will be the high. I got my sickle outside. 71 on Sunday, Monday, 60 degrees. We were talking about talk. I've put a lot of plans in to how this show comes together. And radio in America is facing challenges. And we were talking about digital rivals, the streaming services, podcasting, the gradual decline in what's known as terrestrial radio, and then sort of why, and all kinds of email coming in, text messaging. Will be your show next week. We're packed this week. Brother Jeff about to join us, and then Mandy Connell. Tom Martino's in studio. Patricia Calhoun, Jimmy's on the show. Steve Reams is coming on the show. In the meantime, when I thought about putting the show together, I said, well, we need from both sides, and we need people to openly talk about it. This is really one of my best friends, you guys, Brother Jeff, and I thought about this, and, one of the interesting things about Denver radio, Denver talk radio, is there is no minority voices. And no one better to speak to that than Brother Jeff. Jeffrey, good morning. Thanks for coming back on the show one more time.
Well, I tell you, Pete, it's really great to be with you, but I have to start by saying for you to get fired on Halloween, I can understand, but Christmas Eve, that's just downright wrong, bro.
Oh, it's radio, brother. It was cat radio. This is a true story. The big cat of the Rockies, and Gus was there, and Ed Green was there, and as we got off the air, this is true business. As we got off the air, the program manager said, John would like to see you. And I'm thinking Christmas bonus. I was so broke. How broke were you? I mean, I was tapped. And it was one of the things, my daughter had just been born, and my dad had passed away, and I mean, I was tapped. And I thought, here we go. I thought I'd get $100 or something, and we got the gate. But what was typical, as I was walking out the next day, they said, you want to run the Christmas music tapes for Jeffrey? I'm not making this up. And I think they paid me like $4 or $5 an hour to come back in at whatever the hell time, dark 30, and we had the big reel-to-reels. And I sat in there and played Christmas music I might have made $25 that day. And that's a true story. I got canned on Christmas Eve. I got fired a bunch of times in this business. Anybody that gets into it knows you're going to get hired because, as I say, you're a head coach. Someday they're going to fire you. And if you don't know that, stay the hell away from it. It's going to get you.
Well, I can tell you that. Yeah. That's the day that radio began to die. By the time you see a falling star, it has already been falling for thousands of years.
Oh yeah, no, I mean they give you a cigarette and a blindfold. They're out of here, and I know that. I mean, I know that intrinsically. I know that they hire you to fire you, but some guys have these lifelong careers. We've had two events in talk radio to really take its head off. One was the death of Rush Limbaugh, and the other one was recently the murder of Charlie Kirk. I add into that for Denver, further back was the murder of Alan Berg, and
yes.
And I got a lot of calls when Charlie Kirk was murdered, and Alan was the other side of that coin. I mean, Alan's politics were opposite his politics, and actually Charlie Kirk had a nationwide audience, and Alan was pretty much a Colorado voice. So I can go back. We had the Black Avenger. We had in Colorado or in Denver in talk radio. Why do you think, Jeff, there's not been that many minority voices?
Well, certainly in Colorado it's because the numbers don't really afford for someone to really get into that market unless their politics or their identity really resonates with, when you think about talk radio, what really works, I would say, is more conservative voices. I haven't really seen progressive talk radio work in too many places. And so when you have somebody, when I think about talk radio in Colorado, I would say someone like Ken Hamlin, had a run. And then it also means that if you're very popular as a black person in talk radio and you're not a sports talk radio person, and there's some legendary individuals who changed that entire game, like Theory Smith, who we know and worked with for many years. You've got CJ, you have Big Al, so there can be black voices in the talk radio space, but they're generally individuals who made names for themselves on the field as well. And so when you start thinking about black voices in Colorado right now, even the political voices or powerhouses are going away. It just doesn't open up to have, a wide ranging audience unless you're kind of an anomaly and you're kind of very different from all those other blacks. And it gets real interesting because at the end of the day, it's money, it's numbers, and you've got to get folks interested in listening. And so I just don't see anyone being able to do that right now, and many haven't done it in quite a while.
I like what you said, progressive talk radio. In Denver, they tried to come up with something called Alice, and then they had Ralph. And if you know about the Honeymooners, Alice and Ralph were the Cramdens, and it missed everybody except for a handful of us that were old enough to remember. And they put this show, this whole station, and it folded. And then there was Air America, and that folded. Jeff, why do you think, and this is something the audience will talk about next week, why did those stations fold?
Conservative talk radio really works. Like when you think about, a Rush Limbaugh, you start thinking about those types of powerhouses. And remember, syndication is a big thing as well. One of the things that I've always been able to do in terms of getting a gauge for a particular city or an environment that I travel into was to listen to local radio. At some point, it began to be where local radio just sounded like everywhere else because everything was syndicated, and the only thing that changed was the environment. Like you might see the ocean, you might see the mountains, but you didn't get a local feel. And it became money. Money was starting to say, hey, I could just pay one person, send this signal out everywhere, and then it will be better for my bottom line. And so it's always been business. Everything comes to an end, and the money's going to always dictate what we're going to hear, see, feel, and do. And so syndication was a big deal. And now if Peter was going to be fired on Christmas Eve, that meant the big folks already knew a long time before that they were going to do it. I think the money knows certainly that radio is on its last, last leg, and they're milking it for everything they could get out of it because the future is certainly in a different direction. And now you can have podcasts, you can get all kinds of content. I even listened to this show on my telephone. I didn't listen to you this morning on the radio. I was listening to this program on my phone. And so the medium or the delivery system is changing, and people's tastes are changing over time. And I think that's what you're seeing in terms of the waning of talk radio or radio in general.
Brother Jeff's here. Coming up, Mandy Connell. Radio is changing. There's no question. But is it dying, or is it on life support, or is it healthy? Radio's, in some ways, radio's still alive. AM stations are drifting off the air. We were talking about, my grandson, he knows what I do for a living, but he never listens. He's like, he knows I do a radio show, and I wonder, I should ask him if he ever listened to me on the air, but the audiences that we once enjoyed with I mean, I can tell you the ratings that Alan Berg and I had at KOA Radio when KOA had the big morning show with Gus Merkus and all of those guys, and then it was me, and then it was a news block, and then it was Alan, and then it was sports and afternoon news. That puppy we were in the 20s, man. It was big time. And now, I don't know. And now it's gone. So you grew up, I mean, you and I, you worked for Daddy, and I knew Daddy-O really well. And
yeah.
So, but that in Pittsburgh, there was a black station. In Denver, there was a black station. What happened to the black station in Denver?
Well, all the little fish got eaten up by the big fish. And so there was a time where you had local autonomy where even a DJ would, program their own music, and then all of a sudden the computer started telling them what to play and when to play it. And so when you think about what happened to radio, particularly these AM signals, Dr. Daddy-O came in when there was no soul music on radio.
Oh, there wasn't.
And he brought something new to the market. And so black folks have always had the gift of gab, but the way it was delivered, the talk was in between the music. So the music drove the conversation, not the conversation driving the music. And a lot of the conversation was also inside of that music. But I also produced that show on KDKO, which was called Inner City Vision.
Yep.
With John Bowman and others, where it was specifically talk, but individuals knew the music was coming as well. I also produced Bill Ritter's show, A Talk with the DA on KDKO. This was because folks were very interested in cases that were, being charged or not. And so as long as folks are interested in the content, it's going to work. But if you have a black all-talk radio station, it really doesn't work. And folks that are listening to this right now, there's probably just as many listening on their computer, on their phone. And there's going to come a time where people are going to say, well, what's a radio? Like, what do you mean a radio? It's like saying, you know what, I know what black and white television is, but black and white television has gone away. And now television, as we know it, is going away, like the whole network dynamic. So times are changing. It'll stay alive as long as there's individuals who know what it is, but then it'll come back like the novelties that you see inside of Barnes & Noble that are selling vinyl again. So it'll be a novelty thing for those who are hearkening back to, yesterday.
I have just a quick drop at 11 o'clock, and I put a text out to the friends that are part of this, and because there's people living in other parts of the country, and they can hear it. I mean, you're talking about Americans are streaming the radio, internet services such as what you have and what I have. So multiple apps have put a spin on listening to the radio on the go. And so, but it's still radio. I mean, it's radio. I've told the story. My uncle, who had been through hell fighting the Japanese, my sister got a transistor radio. And we were, I don't know how old we were, 12, 13, and he threw it out the front door. I mean, he wouldn't have it in the house. Those guys carried that with them. But, and I watched that, and we had a big radio that my grandma had, and they were called cathedrals. And now we have, like you say, I can do it on my phone. I sometimes like Chuck and Julie do a cast that's a podcast. I'll listen to that show on my computer when I'm working. So is it just going in different directions, Jeffrey, or is it, or I mean, is it healthy? Is it doing well?
It's just a different medium. It's just a different delivery system. The content is the same. Today you don't have to get a job in broadcasting. Everybody who has one of these cell phones in their hand, they can be their own director of their own, broadcast agency. And so, like right now, I'm not on radio, but every day I'm streaming via the internet. I've got a show that not only I can program and bring in guests and deliver content without anybody saying what I can or cannot say or do. It's wider open. You know, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. All of this new delivery system is incredible. And not only that, you can monetize your own content. So now, based on what you're putting out, content has always been king. And so AdSense and some of these other big systems, they just deposit money right into your bank account.
Yep.
And so you can be your own boss right here in this medium called communications. And if you put out content that attracts individuals, you know, you're the master of your own destiny. But one of the things that they do control is the algorithm, which constrains who they allow to see what you're putting out. So there's still control in it, but there's opportunities for everyone, when in the past there were limited opportunities to do what we're doing right now.
There's a line, and I don't know where it came from, that said the media in America doesn't tell you what to think, but it does tell you what to think about.
Absolutely.
That's true. I mean,
that's absolutely true.
Yeah, that's absolutely, yes.
But then also in radio, Peter, you've got to remember, and I heard some of your earlier guests talking about this, depending on where the money is coming from to the station, that would dictate who you and what you could talk about. So, for example, folks falling out of favor for covering sports teams and saying things about Elway, for example. Now, what's different today is, you know, my program, I could talk about all of the politics and individuals, and, you know, we would talk about Hancock and Albus Brooks and all of the different things, and no one could exert force on us to say, hey, don't talk about that because it's going to impact our bottom line or our access or the way we interact with the status quo or the system. You know, there are, you know, risks of not being invited to the party, but many of us didn't want to go to the party anyway, and we're able to really talk truth to power. And I think that that's the power of the local access to media that we have today.
So, Brother Jeff's here. Radio in America is facing challenges from digital audio rivals, streaming, podcasts, gradual decline in what's called terrestrial radio listenership. And, of course, with that comes advertising revenue, although radio does remain large, and it's a large medium. The industry is in trouble, but is it on life support? Is it healthy? I learned that. My last question to you, and I got to break away. How we doing? How we doing, Brother Jeff?
I think we're doing well. It just depends. I think sports talk is going to always be, very popular. I think that talk radio folks are going to always communicate, but I think where the money is going to go, it's going to continue to drive what we're able to see here and even think about. So radio is changing. It won't go away as long as there's someone who doesn't know how to open up their email or log on to Zoom or navigate the current technology, or when their grandkids come to them and say 6, 7, and they do something with their hands, and you're like, what in the world was that?
That is true. That is true. I don't know what that is, but and I do Brother Jeff's television show with him a lot, and it's really a popular show, and it is free form. Thank you, sir. We'll talk over the weekend. Thanks for doing the show, Jeffrey. Thank you.
Talk to you soon, Peter.
All right. Coming up, Mandy Connell. Next on 710 KNUS, we are talking about talk on a talk show. Stay here.
Your KNUS forecast for the Denver metro area calls for a cool start to what will be another warm weekend of fall weather here around the Central Rockies and High Plains. Here in the metro area, we're going to see high temperatures today and Sunday near 70. It'll be a beautiful Sunday afternoon for Broncos football. Dry through the weekend until Sunday night when a little shower activity is possible thanks to a trough of low pressure moving in, and that'll kick off cooler temperatures Monday into Tuesday, highs upper 50s. I'm meteorologist Mark Huer in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Here we go, everybody. Saturday, November 15th, 2025. Next Saturday is your turn. We got a packed house talking about talk. 710 KNUS 72, the high, 71 on Sunday, and David Ellis in Cherry Creek. And then we're going to go to Mandy Connell. You've heard me talk about taking your valuables to David Ellis Jewelers to get a fortune in cash, secure an appraisal from David for all the valuables you have tucked away in your home. The holiday season is here, and it's true. Great time to shop, great place for gifts. David Ellis, in case you don't have a Rolex watch, rare coins, or a silver tea set, see David for all the most meaningful gift-giving occasions. David Ellis Jewelers, just the right items, just the right prices, special people, pendants, emerald pendants, gold necklaces, diamond rings. Trusted jeweler, been buying precious metals and antiques in Colorado for decades. Dazzling cases. Hundreds of new and used pieces your loved ones will treasure. Visit David Ellis Jewelers. See for yourself. He's there as we speak. The Black Awning on the corner of 3rd and Clayton and Cherry Creek. Explore DavidEllisJewelry.com. Call my friend David, 303-322-8779, 303-322-8779. David Ellis, and tell him Peter Boyles sent you. In a world dominated by men, the woman has shined. Ladies and gentlemen, she is my friend, Mandy Connell, KOA On Air, and we're talking about talk. Hey, thanks for doing this, Mandy, and welcome over on the other side. Thanks.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Peter. You know that I love to talk about this stuff as much as you do.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you've listened to any of this at all this morning, but you're how do I say this? I mean, my respect for you is that you've come through in a business that's really run by guys, run by men. Women get relegated. I mean, when I started out in the business, I was a MOR jock, Sinatra and, Montevani plays the Beatles. And there was somebody that was called the girl. And I didn't know her name, but she had the front desk, and she was the girl. And I don't know, she was like, I don't know how old she was, but she did the logs, answered the phone, that kind of stuff. And you went to see the girl. That was it. And then later I ended up, working for women, Chris Olinger and Jessica Farias. These are people you know.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
So how did you, I've heard the story, and it's a great story. How did you get into business?
Well, that story is magical. I mean, it's like a Rita Hayworth story, right? So I was a flight attendant for Delta Airlines. I had dropped out of college to become a flight attendant. I regret nothing about that, by the way. That was a great decision. I got a better education traveling the world than I could have ever gotten in my senior year at college. But I've been doing it for about 5 years, and I kind of knew that that's not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, right? I was like, okay, now I don't have a college degree. Now what am I going to do? I've boxed myself in here, but I happened to be working. I never had a set schedule. I was always on what's called reserve. So it was very rare for me to know when I was going to fly and where I was flying to. But in December, I could hold a set schedule as long as I flew on Christmas and New Year's, right? So I had a set schedule for the month of December, and I was working a flight between Hartford, Connecticut and Palm Beach. And I had a guy on the flight, an older gentleman, and the week before, we had 2 people get into a fist fight on the airplane. Now, this was pre-9/11, so people were allowed to just randomly fist fight on the airplane, and they didn't drag you off in cuffs, right? But I was telling the other flight attendants about it, and they said, well, what did you do? And I said, well, I got on the phone and I got on the PA to give a blow-by-blow for people that didn't have good seats. Right. And this guy overheard. And as he got off the plane, he said, you're really funny. You should be in radio or television. And Peter, I mean, back then I was in my 20s. I was far thinner and far hotter than I am now. So I got a lot of cards from old men. Right. I mean, it was just like a thing. Yeah. So I did what I did with all those cards. I threw it away. And the next week or 2 weeks later, I'm working the flight in the other direction. Back to Hartford, and he and his wife get on the plane, and he said to his wife, he said, Sally, this is the girl I was talking about. And come to find out, they invited me to their home, to talk to me. He owned the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, which is a chain of broadcasting schools down the East Coast. His name's Dick Robinson. I still talk to him. And he said, you need to do this. And I said, well, I don't have any money because I'm a flight attendant. And he said, and I quote, I have more money than God. I'll give you a scholarship to my school.
Wow.
But I didn't have any time off, right? I mean, I didn't know when I was going to be working. So I kind of was put it on the mental back burner. And about 2 months later, Delta offered 7-month leaves of absence, and the school was 2 months, and then an internship. Wow. And I thought, okay, I'll just do this, and I will go, and I will see if I have a job when it's all over. And by the time my leave was over, I didn't have a paying job. I had a rather permanent free internship at what was then Clear Channel in Orlando.
Man.
Actually, it was J-Core. So
Sure.
J-Core, Clear Channel was in the process of buying J-Core. I was interning for a radio station that was still owned by J-Core, but it was all during that transition.
What was the format?
It was news. Oddly, I went to broadcasting school in Palm Beach, and then I interned at WINZ in Miami, which is a news station. And I learned how to do news, and completely coincidentally, Clear Channel had just gone to automation called Audio Vault, this new system, Audio Vault. Remember Audio Vault?
Sure.
Okay. So I transfer, because I was living in Orlando, so I transfer my internship to the cluster in Orlando the same day that they are unveiling Audio Vault. So I'm the intern, but I already know how to use the computer system.
Oh, they love
you.
you.
So I was training all of these news people how to use the Audio Vault system because they'd launched it in Miami first. And long story short, I did that for 9 months. I also interned in promotions. I also drove station vehicles. I also picked up laundry.
Oh, sure.
I also babysat people's kids. I did whatever I had to do. And when a job opened in the building, I got it. So it was kind of like that. Yeah.
How soon did you fall in love with what we do?
Oh, gosh. Here's the thing. I was already a talk radio fan, right? Which is rare because I was in my mid-20s. But there was a hot talk station in Orlando called Real Radio 104.1, still there. And I listened to it all the time. But, Peter, to your point about there not being any women in radio, it had never occurred to me that I could do that job. Because everybody was male on the station. I mean, everybody. There was like the random stripper that was part of a show because she was willing to come in and get naked. You know what I mean? But there was not any women. No. Yeah, there was not any women that were being taken seriously on that station. But after I went to broadcasting school and I was interning, I really started to think, wait a minute, I could actually do this. And so the job itself, I mean, I worked for free, Peter, for 9 months.
Sure.
And I'm talking 40 hours a week, and I was waiting tables to pay my bills. So it gets into your blood. And then I started realizing, like, everything I'm naturally good at translates to this job and this job only.
I mean, the voice is so familiar. Everyone, of course, in Denver now, Mandy Connell, who does mid-mornings now at KOA. But I've always, lately, when people say, I'd like to get into business, Mr. Boyles, what should I do? And I go, learn to weld.
You know, Peter, I'm telling everybody, start your podcast. Like, if you want to be in this industry, start a podcast because you know as well as I do, we've gutted the minor leagues, which used to be smaller market radio, where you would go and you'd start, working in market number, 98, and then you would eventually work your way up. Well, now it's all syndicated. So there's no minor leagues. There's no place to start in our industry. So I always tell people, start a podcast. And eventually, I think every talent is going to come from the podcasting side pretty soon.
I wrote a bunch of stuff down to get ready for the show today, and I bounced it off a couple of people. The sense of radio in our country today, are we on life support? Are we healthy? How do you see us? I don't care if it's these call letters or your call letters or somebody else's calls. What is the future of all of this?
Okay, I don't know if you watched Paul DePodesta's press conference the other day. He's the new head of baseball operations for the Colorado Rockies, but I was listening to his press conference.
Okay.
And he said something about Coors Field, right? And he said, I believe as someone who has been with teams who comes to Coors Field, that Coors Field could be the greatest home field advantage in sports. Like he said that. And Peter, you know as well as I do, Coors Field has been the thing we blame, right? It's like, oh, we play at Coors Field,
sure.
we play at altitude, we can't get pitching. But the reality is radio, in my opinion, has much the same perspective issue. Because, I know you call them the evil empire, but iHeartMedia loves stats, right? We love statistics. And there are more people listening to the radio every day right now than there was 20 years ago. Does that sound like a dying medium? Well, the problem is that we in radio don't tell the story of our success well enough.
But I did some work this week reading, the Nielsen outcomes and all kinds of different things, and the competition, the declining listenership. Terrestrial AM and FM radio listenership has been downward trend. I mean, and this is from Nielsen, whom all blessings flow, significantly. It's their advertising shifts. As you know, the advertisers are spending, and I listen to your show, and I can do this, and I bet we could do it together. We could go to a town or a city that we've never been to before. We could get a room and get a radio and give us 2 or 3 days, and I can tell you the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 stations in the market by the commercial load. Do you think we could do that?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you and I listen to you, on the breaks, and I'm thinking to myself, ka-ching, ka-ching. But no, but you know it, and I know it. I have a story that I tell that I learned everything about radio from was about getting money, but the financial pressure, the stations are experiencing financial challenges. And some local stations face cuts. They get rid of everybody. Major music labels are having problems with music radio. I mean, that's real stuff. And I wonder, where do we head? What are we doing?
Well, I mean, you've got to look at the entire media landscape, right? Because you could make the exact same argument about television viewing.
Absolutely.
The days where 50 million people are going to watch the end of a series because we all watched it together.
Yes.
The entire media landscape is diluted, right?
Yes, I agree.
It's so diluted from where it was even when I started in radio 20 some odd years ago. And I think that we have to all recognize that we're going to have to share the pie, right, with more people. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I have to give a lot of credit to iHeart for is that they are looking at ways to integrate across multiple platforms. So when someone comes on my show, they're not just getting the over-the-air, they're also getting podcasting if that's what they want. Yeah. They can sponsor the streaming and all of these different platforms and avenues that they're delivering our product. So I think the challenge is that it's been difficult, and I would say newspapers have really had this issue. It's like, okay, how do you take our product and monetize it in the new media world?
Radio.
Right?
Yes.
So that's been the challenge.
Well, I tell a story. This is when I was working at KOA, and we had interns, and really smart kid who was a J school kid, and he came in with the newspapers, and then like the Rocky, and I don't know what was, maybe it was the Post and USA Today and the Journal and everything, and he dropped all the newspapers, and he said, "Hey, boss, yesterday's news just got here."
Yeah.
And if you look at the numbers, like the late Ward Lucas has passed away, folks, but the late Ward Lucas would say, when you looked at the 10 o'clock news numbers, when Adele was here and Sardella and himself and all these guys, they had a huge number. And now they don't. And so everything's going someplace else. I think straight TV's having a bigger problem than Mandy Connell and KOA if there is a problem. I mean, these guys really don't know what to do. They're really...
Well, and I mean, Peter, I'm sure you've had conversations with your advertisers that have used sort of a similar mix over the years of print and television and radio, and now the things that have worked for them for years are no longer working.
They don't.
Right? They're no longer getting the results. So we're all sort of sorting through this together. And I think especially in talk radio, and I generally speaking don't comment on music radio because I know so little about it because I just don't care about it. And we're not being dismissive of the wonderful people who work in music radio, but for me, it's not my area of focus, right? So, but with talk radio, we have an advantage, and it's the same advantage that's being seen in the podcasting world now, right? Oh, God, I got to tell you this, Peter. So I'm sitting on the show, and we play these ads for the iHeartRadio podcast, like various podcasts get featured. Okay, so I'm sitting there in the commercial break, and I'm listening to a commercial for a show that is essentially a dramatization on the radio of a true crime story. But it's a dramatization. And I come back to show, and I said, are you kidding me right now? So now we've come full circle to when radio first started, and they were doing like dramas on the radio, and that's what we're doing on podcasting. But with us, with what we do and the relationship with the audience that we have, that's our advantage, right? I mean, they trust you because they know you're going to tell them the truth and that you're trying to give them the best information and that you respect them, right? So I think from just an overall marketing perspective, we are in the catbird seat, where a lot of our peers who may work in other formats are not as lucky to have that same kind of hours-long, everyday built relationship that we have the privilege of having.
Let me take a quick turnaround. We'll come back. Mandy Connell's with us, 710 KNUS. Martino coming up in studio. We're talking about talk. Next Saturday, you get to talk about talk. I'm Peter Boyles. This is 710 KNUS. Morning again, everyone. The 15th of November, 2025, 72 the high, 71 tomorrow. Talking about talk, 710 KNUS Denver's talk station. The best is with us, Mandy Connell. If you bring her up, if you would, please. The dawn of radio, actually, and I'm going to throw this question as well, happened late in the 19th century. So it no longer, Mandy, is in its infancy, to say the least. And it's not hard to imagine that radio's popularity, and where are we and what are we doing? And you and I have been doing this a long time. And so looking at the new technologies that are coming on board, Brother Jeff talked about it, how much of that will impact us one way or another? What do you think in terms of that?
Well, I love the fact that now we can be heard wherever, right? Because I have people that still listen to me from Fort Myers, right? Because that's where I got my first show. I have people that still listen to me every day from Louisville, Kentucky. And I love that aspect of it. But I do think that the biggest challenge isn't necessarily the technology. I think, Peter, it's the fact that attention spans are about as long as a goldfish now, right? I mean, there's so much data about the fact that we cannot pay attention anymore, and especially younger generations. I'm actually really worried about that because with what you and I do, when I first started doing a show, I would sometimes run a topic for the entire show. Yeah. But now, if you run a topic for more than 2 segments, you get the people who are like, "My God, are you going to talk about this all day?"
No, I've listened to you do that. Like I call it like pitching. You throw the heat, you throw the deuce.
Yeah.
You let up. No, seriously. I mean, and of course now with streaming, then that brings competition. Streaming services and podcasts are major competitors because what we're looking for is, I tell people, audience attention, which brings us advertising dollars.
And as people can no longer pay attention, that gets really challenging for us to say, hey, stick around and please. I mean, I'm very open about the fact with my audience that if they love the show, then, and for you the same, if you love the show, the best thing you can do is walk into one of the people that I advertise for and say, I'm here because Mandy Connell sent me, or I'm here because Peter Boyles sent me.
That's right.
That is how you demonstrate your love for the show, right? So you can send me nice emails all day long, but I really need you to call American Financing and refi, right? That's what I need.
No, I went through that. What do you do for a living? I sell teeth whitening. That's what I do.
Peter, I had a boss a long time ago. Actually, I was working as a producer on an overnight show on the Hot Talk station at Real Radio 104.1. Excuse me. And we got a new program director, a guy named Bill Wise. Well, we're on in the overnights, Peter. You don't see a program director when you're on in the overnights. And one night at like 4 o'clock in the morning, this guy shows up. Yeah. And I was like, oh, crap, we're getting fired. But he really just wanted to see what we did, right? So he takes us to breakfast afterwards, and he sits us down, and he said, okay, tell me what you think your job is. And we both launched into this huge thing. We're here to keep people entertained overnight, with all these people. And we went through this whole thing, and he let us finish, and then he looked at us and said, your job is to be entertaining enough that people will listen to the commercials and buy those products. And that has never left me. Never left me. That's our job.
I have 2 moments in my life where I learned everything I ever needed to learn. And there was this guy, I was working at KOA, and they brought a guy in from Chicago named Joe Ryan. And a typical, he was a stone cold Mick, but he knew radio. And he said, he told me, he said, come here, kid. And he said, do you shoot pool? And I said, a little bit. He said, this is what radio is. He said, we shoot the cue ball, and he said, it hits the rail. He said, the station makes money. He said, it banks off and hits the other rail. You make money. And if it hits the second rail and goes and hits the third rail, and the advertiser makes money. He said, we're always shooting 3 rails. And
I like that.
Yeah, that's exactly. Joe Ryan came in as a replacement for somebody that they fired, but he told us that. He said, it's a 3-rail shot. If you can't do it, then you get out of the business. And
that's fantastic. That's accurate.
Remember those guys? I mean, they were there.
Well, I have had the great pleasure of working for an absolutely phenomenal program director right now. His name's Dave Tepper, and he is like a radio guy through his soul, but
Yeah.
he also understands the game of radio, the ratings game, the everything else. I mean, he has a sort of a depth of knowledge about how the system operates that
Yep.
I've never had in a program director before.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Oh,
It's really
those
nice
guys, no, I've
because
heard-
a lot of those guys have been run out.
I've heard good stuff about him. Yeah, I mean, the losses are incredible. The financial pressure now is so great. I ran this by somebody earlier this morning. I used to see the owner every day. When's the last time you even met the owner or saw the owner? Owners.
Well, the CEO did fly in a few years ago to talk to everybody on the private jet that we leased for him, but that's another story altogether.
Yeah.
I just, we're in a different, I don't know, working for Wall Street is a lot different than working for Main Street, right? I mean, that's a big part of the issue, but at the same time, we do have access to resources like the iHeartRadio platform and all of this other stuff that sort of allows us to deliver our message, deliver our show, and still deliver it in the way that people are consuming media today, right? So there's an upside and there's a downside. I've worked for mom and pop shops that were miserable. I've worked for pretty much every radio corporation there is. And, in every situation, there's positives and there's negatives, and you have to figure out how to make the system wherever you are work for you, work for your show. Don't make eye contact and hope your key card works when you get to the office on Monday, right? I mean, that's kind of the business.
Well, I used to love it because you wanted to come back Monday just to hear the stories.
Yeah. God. Peter, people would not believe
Agreed.
the radio industry that you and I got into decades ago. Like, I tell people stories from that hot talk station that I cannot repeat on your radio show now, or we would both be fined by the FCC. It was wild. I mean, wild. It's just not that way anymore.
You and I've talked. I'm trying to write about it, and I have a person that critiques my work, and I get a message back. This really didn't happen, did it?
Exactly.
I've taught. I mean, yeah, but that was part of the. I don't know. That was part of the draw. Was like, this isn't going to happen. If you're over there picking up the phone, talking to someone about their insurance needs, that stuff ain't going to happen. That
exactly.
Watching the all night guy when you came to work in the morning, or some guy sleeping on the couch, or. Because the old lady threw him out, getting him home for 3 days. That was radio. I mean, that was...
Peter, when we were on in the overnights, we were on the ground floor of the building.
Yep.
So we were on from midnight to 6. And at about 2:35, when all the bars closed in Orlando, all of our friends would show up at the stadium, at the station. And they would then drop their trousers and give us a pressed ham on the windows. All the way down the windows, we would just have all these butt cheeks. And then they would come in wasted, and we would get them on the show. I mean, it was absolutely insane. And the fact that no one knew what we were doing made it even better.
I did that to Steve Kelly. There it is. I mean,
yeah. I feel sorry for the kids today.
Oh, I mean, I always said, here's what we'll make a pact right now. On the last day that both of us work, we'll go on the air and tell those stories. And I always said the best stories. I have this thing where on the last day, the stories you tell off the air, you tell on the air, and then you head to the exits. We got a minute, Mandy. Thank you. I know that this was. These are breaking kayfabe. You come on the other guy's show. Thank you, and you're wonderful, and I love your work, and I listen to you, and hey, when I hear somebody that I know loves what I love, then you go, man, she's okay. And for the folks in the audience, she's okay. Mandy Connell. Final thoughts. final thoughts.
Final thoughts are I will forever be grateful that you got fired because I would not be in Denver without that, Peter Boyles. You are the man who moved my career in a way that I cannot even ever thank you for, and I will always remain eternally grateful for you.
I love you. Thank you, Mandy. Be safe.
Love
Thank
you,
you.
buddy.
Coming up,
I'll talk to you.
I got some friends. We're going to talk about the Children's Hospital toy run, and then the one, the only in studio, Tom Martino. Hang on.